In this video we're going to talk about cap jams and how they really affect the Colt design pistols. What a cap jam is when you fire your cap and ball revolver, and when it goes off, the little cap either will get stuck on the hammer or the pressure blows it back, sometimes even cocking the hammer back, and then when you pull open the hammer, the cap will fall down inside here. And then if you don't catch it, subsequently when you fire, it can jam the gun, or bits of the cap will fall inside. Now, we'll take a minute to look at other types of guns, because like the Remington 1850 here, very rarely does this gun have the same type of cap jam problem as the Colt. What will happen with this gun is sometimes the cap will protrude or be misshapen, and when you come around it'll catch down in here on the frame. It doesn't attach to itself to the hammer, and if it really blew back into the slot, I have one without the cylinder in. These solid frame guns are designed, if you look, there's just a little slot down in here, and that's where your hammer comes in and strikes the nipple. And then when you pull this back, it generally, the cap stays in here. It would have to take a lot of force. And also, if you look at the face of the hammer, it's smooth. Alright? We'll get one of the Colts apart and I'll show you. I'll show you on the Colt 1860. First thing you'll notice is in the hammer there's this notch right here. And what this notch is for is on the back of the cylinders, in between the nipples, there'd be like a little pin, okay? And then you would lower this down, and this notch, the pin would set in this notch. It would be somewhere here. This revolver, this older one, doesn't have it, but the newer ones do. The Walker has like one. It's a safety, okay? But if you have a gun like this could be problematic. It's not useful. Also, if you see in the design the Colt, it's all open. So when the hammer strikes the nipple, and if it gets hung up on that notch, when you draw it back, it pulls it down into here where the hammer is. And on all Colts, if you look down in here, there's an open space that drops right down into the action, right there. So if that little bit of the cap falls, it falls down inside the frame. Okay, so that's a problem. Okay, and it's annoying, alright? Then also another thing, if you look on this frame here, you have this concave cutout. This is on the later guns. I don't know if they're on the Dragoons. I know the Walker and that doesn't have this. This is so the cap, even if it comes off a little, has somewhere to go. And then usually when you fire these and rotate the cylinder, the caps will drop out and fall out of the gun. Alright, so that's your causes mechanically. What will also cause a cap jam, or the caps to flail out, I mean just push back, is, like I said, with the paper cartridges caused it a bit. Because this one here kind of would have cap jams, and when I fired them paper cartridges, that added pressure blew all that stuff down inside the action. Okay, and then again, it's the nipples. The factory stock nipples on these guns are just the way they're shaped, I guess that you could say they're not geometrically correct. And the size of the holes also has something to do with it, and the size of the little flash hole. So these are all kind of your root causes. Now, solutions. Well, we'll look at some solutions that they have. One is with that notch in here. Some people just file it, some people fill it in. One guy, the shootist, filled it in with JB weld. One guy wedged part of a quarter or something in there and filled it or ground it in there with a Dremel tool. Or people just, file it, get the rough edges off, that's good enough. Some people plug this notch. I really don't want to do that because I like using the safety feature on there. Another thing that is done on some other guns, I've seen this done on a Walker. I don't know if it's been done on something like an 1860, but I suppose you could. Is what somebody would do is drill into this part of the frame right in this general area right here. Okay, they drill and set a pin of some sort in there. Let me see if I can get a better camera angle. And what I've seen done, like on some Walkers, and there is a person that offers the service, is you would drill a hole approximately there in this frame. And it's a tricky one because the pin has to be small, and you probably will break through into the area down inside here. And then that pin would be filed to where it fits inside this notch. In other words, it'd be smaller. So when that hammer comes down, there's a pin here that will sit inside the recess, and it'll be standing straight up. So what happens is when you fire the revolver, the cap gets stuck in the notch, or should get stuck in the notch. This pin is in the way. Okay, so what it would be is kind of more or less flush with this hammer. When the hammer is down, that pin would sit in there and be flush, as close as can be. Or not really flush, it'd be inside, recessed, so that would come out and hit the nipple. So with this modification, and I've seen it done on a Walker and a couple other handguns, once the gun comes down, fires the cap, when you would pull the hammer back, the pin is there to strip the cap off and keep it on this side of the frame. Even if you had a little back pressure, that pin in the way would more or less keep the cap here and keep it from falling down into the action. That's a pretty serious method. It probably works, and I understand why they do it. I would not do it to a gun. And just like filling the notch in, okay, filling and filing this notch in will alleviate the problem of the cap getting stuck and dragged back, okay. But if there's overpressure and pushes up against this, then it's going to come back whether that notch is filled in or not. So that's your problems there. Alright, so we went over two fixes, filling a notch and putting in a pin, which is irrelevant on like the Remingtons. Or this one here, this Rogers and Spencer's. Again, every now and again when rotating, you'll get a cap stuck in there, it'll fall in, but not to where it drops inside the action or gets wedged in the hammer. At least not yet. So one solution, which is simple and may help and alleviates drilling, filling in stuff and that, is just get a nipple wrench and replace the nipples. Now there are two types out there that I've been recommended. One is Slick Springs nipples. They're stainless steel. And supposedly they have a small hole in there. Once they arrive, they're not going to arrive for another week. We're going to go and change them out in this gun here, and I'm going to see if this helps with the problem. Some people swear by it. They say once you change the nipples, all these cap jams, the caps blowing off, falling down into action, stops. Okay, and for something like the Remingtons, it's 100% trouble-free. Okay, because the Remingtons really don't have the problems the Colts do. So people replace them on all of them, and I'll go more into detail about the nipples and the things about them. And what it is the base hole is supposedly smaller. The hole in the nipples is larger, allowing more of the cap to combust and go through the small hole, and the shape of it is better, which holds the cap in place during the firing process. Okay, now that's with the Slicks Springs nipples. There's another nipple called Amco. Okay, and what this is a type of a bronze material. The Amco nipples, especially for the Walker, I got a set of those for the Walker. And the reason is it was like $5–10 less than getting the Slick Springs, and I wanted to try the Amcos. So I got them for the Walker. So I'll put them on the Walker, and I'll put them on the 1860, and we'll see if our problems are solved by just that simple fix. Okay, and we'll test it out. So there is a pretty easy way to take care of it just by changing the nipples and give it a try. At least that's what I've been told. So I'm going to try that and see. I really don't like the idea of filling up the notches or drilling and tapping or wedging a pin in there, more or less. That I don't like. Because what will happen is you see this area down in here, you don't want to drill through and get it to where it's exposed, because that's where your cylinder rotates, is in here. So that's a pretty, not much room in there. That's a pretty tough modification, especially on a smaller pistol. You know, the Walker, you probably got more room in that web area there. Alright, so that's my thing on the cap jams. Stay tuned for when I get the nipples in, and I'll show you them, and then we'll put them in, and then we'll go out to the range and see if it solves the problems. Alright, stay tuned.